You've spent years trying out hundreds of productivity hacks and you feel like you've finally found the right ones. But are these hacks actually ruining your productivity? I've tried a bunch of hacks throughout my bachelor's and master's degree and even now at medical school. And I've spent a lot of time figuring out the best productivity hacks you need to be using and some that you might be using that surprisingly ruins your productivity. So I'll rank them so that you don't have to spend years doing the wrong ones and instead use the ones that do work. And here's how I'll rank them. S rank includes productivity hacks that I do every day because the boost in productivity from them is massive. A rank includes hacks that should work for everyone but not to the extent as S rank. B rank includes hacks that works for specific things but might not be something you can use every day. C rank includes things that are useful if they use properly and correctly but can feel a bit limiting. And dropping straight to F rank are hacks that I think are just bad, or they're used in the wrong way and an alternative would be a lot better. So starting with technique number 1 is the 2-minute rule. And the idea is that if there's something you can do within 2 minutes, then you should get that done right now. And that could be things like replying to people or checking emails. And I think in theory this sounds good, like you get all these small tasks out of the way so that you can use the rest of the day to focus on the bigger, more meaningful tasks. But in reality, whenever I applied the 2-minute rule, it ended up adding more work over time. Like if I message people sooner, then I'd also get replies sooner and break my flow from doing whatever I'm doing, like studying. And so you just end up with more of these 2 minutes being used up throughout the day. And so because of that, I'll have to put it at C rank and maybe even borderline F rank because there are better alternatives. And that brings me to the next hack, which is batching. So to me, this is about setting aside time to get a group of similar tasks done. Like I might spend 20 minutes to batch reply to people on WhatsApp or Instagram, or check through my emails, or even go outside to get some air. And I usually set this time for after I've done a big task for the day, like studying. And because it kind of works as a downtime after a big task, it feels like a break where I'll still get something done anyway, instead of me constantly doing these small tasks throughout the day and then feeling like I haven't had a long enough break from these big tasks because it all merges together. And because of this change, I'd have to put batching at the end of rank A for now, just because it streamlines things quite a bit, especially compared with a 2-minute rule. And next, we have the to-do list. So before, I had a to-do list for everything. Like I'd list down that I need to send off an email, reply to some people, go to the gym, practice the piano, study and read. And you can see the problem is that it's easy to keep listing things that you want to get done in the day, but that takes your attention away from your bigger priorities or gives you decision fatigue because you don't know where to start. And that goes against being productive. So I'm putting this into F rank because there's a significantly better alternative to it, which is the daily highlight. And the daily highlight is the idea of asking yourself, what is the most important thing I need to do today, and do that as soon as possible. Because the daily highlight hopes you use your time more intentionally on the things that matter to you and on things that need to be done, which a to-do list won't do anywhere near as well as. And I noticed that because I do the most important thing early on in the day with the daily highlight, like going to the gym or studying, I'll start the day off productively, and that makes me want to maintain that productivity for the rest of the day. And because that massively boosts my productivity, I have to put it at an S rank. And next on the list, we have accountability partners. And that's basically having someone that supports you to make sure that you're committed to working towards a goal of yours. And this was a bit of a hit or miss for me because with, let's say, gym, I've had a few people that I used to go with to stay motivated, but then they just ended up not going anymore, so I lost them as a source of motivation. But for this, I have a friend who's consistently been making videos and we push each other to keep going. And when we sometimes feel like we can't be bothered, which does happen quite a lot to me, we remind each other why we keep doing this and why we have to keep going. So an accountability partner is an effective way to keep me productive with this. And because of this, I'd put it at B rank. Because an accountability partner can work for the right things if you have the right people, who are people on the same wavelength as you. And when it does work really well. Like if you're starting university soon, find a friend who's similar to you or slightly more on the studying mindset compared with you so that you can go study with them consistently. And don't have somebody who's just unreliable because that's just going to hold you back. Now I want to talk about the hack of thinking that you get to do something rather than you have to do something. So this is very subjective, but that's with everything else since I'm giving my opinion based on my years of experience. But this is the idea that you get to do something because you're fortunate enough to be in a position to have a choice rather than you having to do something. Like you get to go to medical school or university, or you get to go to work instead of have to because you're lucky enough to have a job. To me, this is just coping or trying to convince yourself that you're okay with the situation when deep down you know you're not. And I think having to persuade yourself to do something you really don't want to do by saying, oh yeah, nah, I get to do this, makes this an F rank for me. Because instead of convincing yourself that you're lucky and it could be worse, you should figure out ways of making something more enjoyable so that you don't have to think about roundabout ways to get yourself to do something. And I think this is a much longer lasting solution to this get to versus have to idea. And next we have the Pomodoro Technique, technique, which I think most medical students know about. But it's where you spend 25 minutes focusing on studying, then take a 5-minute break and do this for 4 cycles until you take a longer break. And I do think it is a good technique if you're starting out on something new. Like if you just started reading a book, or if you started a new topic and you don't want to overwhelm yourself by doing too much. But to me, 25 minutes isn't long enough because I take more than 10 minutes to get into a state of deep focus, whether that's for studying or for piano. So the idea of taking a break just after 25 minutes is way too soon for me. And because of that, it feels a bit limiting, so I'd put it into C rank. And how I prefer to view focusing time is similar to progressive overload at the gym, where at the gym I'd gradually go up in weights or reps as I gain strength. So for focusing, that means gradually increasing how long I focus for. And that helps keep that deep focus and momentum for longer than 25 minutes. So I'd put this progressive overload for focus into A rank, because it does decrease how much I procrastinate and how long I can focus for on a single task. And next we have time blocking or using a calendar, where you block a certain amount of time on your calendar for one thing only. And I found this to be extremely helpful, because before this I'd have a rough idea of what I wanted to get done in the day, whether that was going to the gym, studying or practicing the piano, but I never really used to think of when to do those things. So it meant that I used to make decisions on the spot, or time wasted thinking, oh, should I do this thing now or should I do that thing now? Or I'd finish off doing a big task like studying and then not know what to do next, so go on my phone and waste time before I start the next task. But having time blocked out on my calendar meant that I didn't have to think, I just had to do. So I saved a lot of that time wasted floating around between different tasks, and that made everything a lot more seamless than before. And because of that, I'll give it an S rank. Now the next productivity hack is the habit scorecard, which was mentioned by James Clear in the book Atomic Habits. And this is when you keep track of every single habit you have. Like for me, I'd keep track of every time I'd lose focus on something, like whenever I got distracted by my phone when I'm meant to be studying. And over time, as you check in on your scorecard from the day before, you get out of this autopilot mode with your habits and become more conscious of them, making you more likely to be able to take control of them and stop doing them. And that made me focus a lot better on my tasks and waste less time on things like scrolling on my phone. And all those minutes and bad habits do add up to over an hour a day, so I have to put it at an S rank as well. And the next productivity hack is the 5-minute rule. And this is the idea that if you're finding it really hard to do something, just set a timer to do that thing for 5 minutes only. And chances are when you start, you'll end up going for more than 5 minutes, because it follows the idea that it's starting something that's difficult rather than carrying something on, because when you carry something on, you'd already have some momentum from it. But the thing is, you might think, oh, this is just to trick my brain into do something for 5 minutes, when really I want to do more than that. And when you think like that, it loses a bit of its power. And because of that, it does only work for very specific circumstances, like sitting down to read for 5 minutes, because you can realistically do that. But then you can't really convince yourself to sit down and study for 5 minutes, because you know that's nothing. So I'll give it a borderline C rank, because what you should be aiming to do instead is make whatever you have to do more enjoyable, so that you don't have much resistance to get on with the thing in the first place. And in this video here, I talk about some of the things that I do that made productivity more enjoyable for me, so you can learn exactly how to boost your productivity by making it enjoyable by watching this video.